Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all, those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. Yes! And welcome in, everybody, listening in on our CBS, NBC, and Fox Sports affiliates and independents from coast to coast. Everybody also watching Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Time Warner, Oceanic, and WOW Cable television affiliates in select markets and Hotel TV as well. Same. And also, everybody tuning in on Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. A big welcome in. Folks, make sure to check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. So, after a wild NCAA football weekend, and the smoke is sort of settled, maybe the dust has settled, smoke, whatever it is, things have been shuffled up just a little bit. And the bigger question is, how does the nonsensical bowl championship series nonsense stack up? Because when we look at the top 25, we're going to start from the bottom and work our way up. We sort of scratch our heads a little bit with some of these because, all the way down at number 25 is Army. Now, Army did have a tough week against Notre Dame, but they dropped 7 slots down to 25. Come on, folks. That's ridiculous. I'm sorry. That is completely ridiculous. Missouri stays unchanged at number 24 with their 39-20 win over Mississippi State. A very nice win. In fact, that's a road win, too. You'd think they would jump up a little bit. Colorado drops 7 slots by their ass kicking by Kansas. Kansas beat them 37-21. They beat them like a drum. Gotta like that one, folks. Sorry, Dion and company. It is what it is. Illinois jumps up 2 slots with a nice road win at Rutgers. The Scarlet Knights playing pretty good football, but not good enough. 38-21. 38-31 was the count there. UNLV jumps up 2 slots to number 21 with their win at San Jose State. Number 20, Texas A&M falls to Auburn. Actually, it was number 15, and they dropped all the way down to number 20, being Texas A&M, 43-41. In a game that, frankly, I couldn't see them mustering up the 40-odd points that they had on the total, the over and under, for the Vegas line. That didn't really make a lot of sense to me, but then again, that's just one guy's opinion, if you know what I mean. Anyway, Brigham Young drops 5 slots to number 19 with their loss at Tempe, not to be confused with Tempe, Arizona. It's actually Tempe. 28-23, Brigham Young loses to Arizona State. Sun Devils with a nice win there. That drops Brigham Young down to 9-2, and for all intents and purposes, they're out of the BCS playoff, college football playoff scenario. Of course, I keep calling it Bowl Championship Series, but now it's the CFP, whatever. Same thing. Tulane jumps up 2 slots to number 18 with their win. They're drowning of the Naval Academy, 35-0. Iowa State with a nice road win over at Utah, 31-28. They jump up 5 slots to number 17 with that win, move to 9-2 overall, and are in contention for the Big 12 championship. South Carolina jumps up 3 slots to number 16 with their win over Cupcake City Wolford, 56-12. Up next for them is going to be Clemson at Death Valley. So I think this is the interstate battle. This is kind of the rivalry weekend is coming up, of course, and that's usually what happens around Thanksgiving time. Ole Miss dropped 6 slots with their loss, a stunning loss to the Gators. And Florida has been very, very unpredictable. And they've been actually playing, well, actually pretty good ball of late. But, boy, did they get off to an awful start. Ole Miss dropped down to number 15. They were ranked number 9, and they are essentially out of the SEC race at this point. Arizona State jumped up 7 slots with that big win over Brigham Young. They're up to number 14. And Alabama got absolutely blown out by Oklahoma, a team that doesn't seem to play any defense except for this past week, if you know what I mean. Oklahoma 24, Alabama 3? I would have never guessed that, and I don't know anybody that had that one. The only people that had that one are the people that went to Oklahoma or those that live in Oklahoma. Nobody would have guessed that Alabama, first of all, would be held to 3 points, let alone lose the game. But the reality is, it seems like Oklahoma just doesn't know how to play defense, except when they're playing Alabama. Who knows? Nonetheless, Alabama dropped 6 slots to number 13, and they are essentially out of the SEC picture at 8-3 overall. Clemson jumps up 5 slots with their win, and, well, they played the initials, folks, you're going to like this one. The initials are THE. so their win at the 51-14. But anyway, I guess the point is, Clemson with a really big win there. Up next for Clemson, of course, they're going to be hosting South Carolina. And Clemson jumps up to number 12 there if they jump up 5 slots. Boise State with a nice win at Wyoming. Boy, Wyoming, that is a tough place to play. And it happens that Boise State and Ashton Jeanty, who in my opinion is the Heisman favorite right now, he ran for about 196 yards, which is about par for the course for what he does. This guy should run away, of course, pun intended, if you know what I mean. He should run away with the Heisman Trophy. Indiana drops 5 slots with their loss at the Horseshoe against Ohio State. So they dropped to number 10. Now, mind you, these are the AP top 25. SMU jumps up 4 to number 9, also at 10-1 with their win over at Virginia, 33-7. And SMU is in the driver's seat in the ACC, along with it looks like they're headed for a collision course with Miami. Miami is also 10-1 in the ACC. They jump up 3 slots to number 8 with their win 42-14 at Wake Forest. Now, Tennessee plays UTEP. Tennessee destroys UTEP. That was at UTEP. And, of course, that is the tune-up game before, of course, the cross-state rival against Vanderbilt. Now, Vanderbilt is no slouch this year, so Tennessee may have their hands full. This game is going to be played in Nashville at Vanderbilt. Of course, it'll be loaded with orange and white. However, there's going to be a whole lot of black and gold. So that will be a fun one to watch, and it'll probably be a lot closer than what people think. Tennessee at 9-2 still has some hope in the SEC picture for the SEC championship. Speaking of that, of course, Tennessee jumped up 3 slots to number 7. Georgia jumped up 2 slots in the AP Top 25 with their win at Massachusetts. Of course, another tune-up game before the cross-state rival against Georgia Tech, who is a very good squad. And boy, do they have a very exciting game in their 1-point wild win, and that was just a handful of days ago. What an exciting game that was. Of course, Notre Dame goes up 1 slot to number 5 in the AP Top 25 with that win against Army, and Penn State somehow ekes out a win at Minnesota, 26-25. I watched some of that, and it seemed to me, I don't know, folks, show me the money! Maybe there was a little bit of favoritism going Happy Valley's way. Even though they did play in Minneapolis, I just don't believe that game ended the way it did. And honestly, if you watch the replay, you'd scratch your head and say Penn State lost that game. and they lost it handily, but somehow some calls went Penn State's way, and they end up with the victory. Texas rolls over Kentucky. That was a very good win for Texas in the SEC, and they moved to 10-1 right now and are in the driver's seat in the West for the SEC. Ohio State, with their win at home against Indiana, keeps them at number 2 in the top 25. And, of course, Oregon didn't play, but they still hold on to that number 1 seed because they beat Ohio State head-to-head. So that is your top 25. And some of these games were a little bit of surprise. And honestly, I'm a little surprised at the Penn State game. I just shocked that Penn State somehow conveniently got themselves a win. And I'm a little bit shocked at the Arizona State Brigham Young game. I'm terribly shocked at Ole Miss. They just seem to lay an egg down there at the Swamp. And I don't even know how they lost that game. It's very embarrassing for Ole Miss that they only mustered up 17 points. And you know what we're seeing, folks? We're seeing certain teams play a little bit of defense. I mean, Oklahoma was the biggest shocker of the entire weekend, in my opinion. I'm a little bit shocked at that one and some of the other ones. But Oklahoma, I have to tell you, that one blew me away because you'd never think that would be the final score or the outcome as well. But a nice congratulations to War Eagle and the Auburn Tigers. Of course, we want to give them a nice round of applause for the nice win against Texas A&M. And, you know, I've been to some of those games, watching those two, and Auburn owes them one. So good for them. They actually owe them a few of them. Back here in a few minutes on the Circus. Lots more to come.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Could you use a little extra money right now? If you'd like to borrow up to $100,000 and get pre-approved in minutes, call the number we'll give you at the end of this commercial. Our lending partners have already loaned millions of dollars to individuals just like you, and we're ready to lend you up to $100,000 if you qualify. Even if your credit is not perfect, you could use the money to pay off high-interest credit cards, for home renovations, or consolidate existing debt. You can get flexible, easy-to-pay terms. The consultation to find out if you qualify is free. To find out if you qualify for our special financing program, call this toll-free number 24 hours a day. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. 800-335-1376. That's 800-335-1376. Important terms and conditions apply. Not all applicants will qualify. Loan amount, annual percentage rate, and term will vary depending on creditworthiness. Applying does not guarantee approval. Account approval is subject to verification and confirmation of your credit report will be obtained to evaluate your creditworthiness in connection with your application for credit.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call
714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com. That's csncoyotes.com for the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Nice round of applause for them. They've been with us for a couple of thousand shows. That's pretty exciting. And a big welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our affiliates, including our friends over in Atlanta on WDJY 99.1 FM. Over in Auburn, Alabama, that would be WAUD, home of the Atlanta Braves. Big hello to our friends over in Honolulu on CBS Sports 1500 KHKA, that's home of the 49ers, who really got a whooping. The New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide, who got a whooping as well, if you know what I mean. It was ugly. Also, a big welcome in everybody on Chicago Food Favorites. Check it out on Facebook, folks. That's Chicago Food Favorites. You get a chance to post your favorite recipes, your favorite restaurants. Doesn't matter where they're at in the world. Just post them, because chances are you could find that same wonderful food in the great city of the city of Chicago. Nice round of applause for them. Never mind that buzzer. Hey, listen, folks, it's live. Anything can happen, if you know what I mean. All right. Now that we've got all that stuff done, you know, I did mention in the last segment Ashton Jeanty and the Heisman voting and the race and so forth. And USA Today has a little write-up here. We're going to kind of refer to this one here. We want to give them a little credit because, well, let's face it, this is what they do. And we want to make sure that we have responsible reporting and we don't edit the credit, because a lot of companies do that. A lot of shows do that. And frankly, they don't give a damn. But we do. So they say, a Heisman Trophy race that had dozens of viable contenders at the start of 2024 college football season is now down to just a handful of hopefuls. An award, of course, that has been dominated in recent years by quarterbacks who have claimed the hallowed trophy in 12 of the last 14 years, now seems most likely to be won either by a running back or a wide receiver / cornerback, both of whom have a few peers in the game's modern history. Though it came in a losing effort, Colorado two-way star Travis Hunter added to his already spectacular season with a pair of touchdown catches against Kansas. Boise State running back Ashton Jeanty surpassed the 2,000-yard mark while keeping his team's college football playoff hopes alive. Miami quarterback Cam Ward remains in the Heisman conversation with 280 yards passing, 2 touchdowns against mediocre Wake Forest. However, where do things stand when it comes to this incredible trophy? Well, here's a quick look after week number 13 as to where these guys stand. And of course, according to BetMGM right here in Las Vegas, the MGM Resorts International organization, it's basically a 3-player race for the Heisman, with Hunter, Jeanty, and Ward far ahead of the rest of the FBS peers. And so here's the breakdown according to them. Colorado, this guy is the odds-on favorite, the guy from Colorado. That's Travis Hunter, which I'm a little shocked at that. And honestly, I'm not real happy about that. No! Even though he's a two-way player. Nonetheless, in a 37-21 loss against Kansas that snapped his team's 4-game winning streak, Hunter excelled for Colorado. Offensively, he had 8 catches for 125 yards, 2 touchdowns, while recording 7 tackles and a pass deflection. On defense, his output pushed him past the 1,000-yard mark for the season. Now, Hunter has emerged as the betting favorite in recent weeks, and not just because he made a habit of striking the Heisman pose after his big plays during the game. And of course, last week he was minus 500. Now he's minus 1,000. So offense, 82 receptions for 1,036 yards, 11 touchdowns, 2 carries for 5 yards and a touchdown. Defense, 30 tackles, 9 pass deflections, 3 interceptions, and 1 forced fumble. Pretty good resume. Now, number 2 is Ashton Jeanty from Boise State. And of course, the Broncos running back continues to rise up and pile on the single-season rushing record books. So in a 17-13 win at Wyoming, Jeanty became the 30th player in FBS history to rush for at least 2,000 yards in a season after he racked up 169 yards and a touchdown on 19 carries despite briefly leaving the game with an injury. His night was highlighted by a 61-yard touchdown run. GT has rushed for at least 125 yards in each of Boise State's 11 games this season. Though he remains in Heisman contention, the gap has grown between him and Travis Hunter. GT had a 425 odds heading into week 13. Now he's plus 5 or 750. Excuse me, he's plus 750. So people are starting to bet on the other guy, which would be Travis Hunter. So I'm not really confident about that one. Anyway, moving on, we've got a couple of other guys here. We've got Miami's quarterback Cam Ward. He's a plus 1,200 at BetMGM. Ward remains the third member of the trio, though his odds actually improved following that 42-14 blowout of Wake Forest that wasn't among his better games, and he went 27 for 38 for 280, 2 touchdowns, but an interception. Washington State transfer also had a 1-yard touchdown run. Heading into the game, he was at plus 1,400, and so his odds have dropped to plus 1,200. Passing, he's 268 of 339, 67.2% for 3,774 yards, 34 touchdowns, 7 interceptions. That's about a 5-to-1 ratio. Pretty darn good. Rushing, 53 rushes, 177 yards. So he's averaging about 3 yards a carry. I'm moving down the ladder, which this is kind of a shocker. The number one team in the nation is Oregon, and that's in the FBS or in the college football playoff, as well as the AP Top 25. And that would be quarterback Dylan Gabriel. He's at a plus 6,600. Put up $100 and win 6,600. Not bad. Or put up 10 and win $660. Not bad. But Gabriel is, well, a distant fourth, which may ultimately be enough to earn him an invitation to New York for the Heisman presentation. I don't understand this. I mean, this guy's team is the number one team overall. And how in the world is he not one of the leaders? He's got to be 1 or 2, but nope, apparently not. His top-ranked Oregon team was idle during Week 13, of course, to the point he has helped guide the Ducks, of course, as I mentioned, to an undefeated season, which has allowed them to secure a spot in the Big Ten championship game, and they can compete in unbeaten regular season with a win Saturday against Washington. So they will go unbeaten with that win against their local Washington rival. And I say that because they were both Pac-12 teams. And, of course, that's now the Pac-2, which is soon to be the Pac-7.5. But Dylan Gabriel, 259 for 351 passing, 73.8% for 3,066 yards, 22 touchdowns, 6 interceptions, rushing 259 of his 351 passing. Look, this guy for 3,066, this is a guy that really knows what he's doing. And beyond Gabriel, 10 players are tied for 5th with odds of 500,000 or better, and that would be Jalen Milroe of Alabama. That ain't going to happen. Georgia's quarterback Carson Beck, that's not going to happen. Texas quarterback Quinn Ewers, that's not going to happen. Ohio State quarterback Will Howard, that's not going to happen. Notre Dame quarterback Riley Leonard, that certainly won't happen. Colorado quarterback Shedeur Sanders, that is not going to happen. Clemson quarterback Cade Klubnik, forget it. Penn State quarterback Drew Aller, never mind. Indiana quarterback Curtis Rourke, nope. And Ohio State wide receiver Jeremiah Smith, absolutely not. But let's go back to some of these other guys. I mean, looking at Dylan Gabriel right now, his numbers, remember, he is at 73.8% for 3,066 yards. Now let's compare him with Miami's quarterback, who is passing for 700 more yards, but at the same time, he also has a whole lot more of passing attempts. We're talking 48 more passing attempts. That's one full game. In addition, he only has 9 more completes. Imagine that. He has 7 interceptions. That would be the Miami quarterback of Cam Ward. So really, the numbers for Dylan Gabriel are better. Mind you, Dylan Gabriel is a plus 6,600 for the Heisman, while Cam Ward is only plus 1,200. So you say the Big Ten is certainly stronger on a week-in, a week-out basis from top to bottom than the ACC. So how in the world is Dylan Gabriel so far back? But let's go back to number 1 and number 2 here. Ashton Jeanty at plus 750. This race kind of reminds me of the National League Rookie of the Year for Major League Baseball. So it was Jackson Merrill that was the odds-on favorite all the way up to the voting date. And all year long, it was Paul Skeens. And Paul Skeens, a generational pitcher. Man, this guy is good. Nonetheless, Paul Skeens ended up winning the Heisman Trophy. He got the votes that were needed. And he won big. He won by a 3-1 margin, too. So are we going to see the same thing here with Ashton Jeanty? And I have to tell you, folks, I'm going to go down. I'm going to bet $10 on Ashton Jeanty winning the Heisman Trophy over everybody else. I really believe that this guy is one of those guys that's flying under the radar. I mean, look, they say, well, he plays in the Mountain West Conference. So what? You play who's on your schedule. It is what it is. And so you can't say necessarily that Colorado is playing in that much stronger of a Big 12 conference, because the Big 12 is really not that strong. There's a couple of decent teams, but those guys really aren't that good from top to bottom. Is the Mountain West good from top to bottom? Meh. It's almost a dead heat. And I would argue that the Big 12 is just a click better than the Mountain West Conference. Ashton Jeanty should win the Heisman Trophy. I guess they have another game to play, so we'll see what happens with that other game to play before the vote goes on. Back here in a few minutes on the Sports Circus. Don't go anywhere.
I'm your ringmaster Sal of the Sports Circus, a primetime nationally syndicated television, radio, sports, and entertainment show. The Sports Circus covers topics others are too scared to talk about. There's no other primetime show like it on here that'll punch you in the face and you'll beg for more. Join me, Hall of Famers, world champions, and all-star celebrity guests for chaos and controversy here on Libsyn and all podcast platforms, plus thesportscircus.com. Remember, folks, it's a circus and we prove it every day.
Hello Americans, it's Uncle Sam here. If you owe $10,000 or more in back taxes to the IRS or state, don't worry. I've got important news that may help you negotiate a lower tax bill. In today's economy, the IRS has released a variety of new rules and is offering more flexible terms to help Americans looking to settle their IRS debt. If you apply today, we may be able to lift your wage garnishments and release a freeze on your bank assets or business. Our team of tax professionals can resolve your case and stop collection actions against you. Even if you've been audited or haven't filed a return in years, they can help. Call right now and find out if you qualify to settle your IRS debt for far less than what you owe. Pick up your phone right now and call us for a free $500 IRS tax review. Don't wait. Here's the number.
Call right now. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. 800-950-2049. For the last time. That's 800-950-2049.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
That's ridiculous.
Quiet, numbskulls. I'm broadcasting. Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest, our recorded shows, which are a podcast. No, we don't do a podcast. We just happen to keep our full recorded shows unedited at Amazon, Audible, Apple, Spotify, Pandora, iHeartRadio, etc., so forth. You know the story. Also, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great Christmas gifts and ideas over there. And those would be from the knitted hats to the ball caps to sweatshirts to hoodies to sweatpants. And, geez, what else do we have? We have travel mugs and coffee mugs and mouse pads and all kinds of neat stuff. Anyway, check it out, thesportscircus.com, and go to store right at the top of the toolbar. And just make sure that you mention my name, Ringmaster Sal, and we'll make sure that we give you a nice handy-dandy 10% discount just for mentioning the circus. All right. Yes! Actually, for mentioning me. All right. Of course, shameless plugs for the Sports Circus and, well, let's face it, and for everything else that we're doing. And, you know, we think about these bowl projections, right? Because it's that time of year, and, of course, we have all the football games from the at-large games and whatnot, the conference games. And, you know, we ask ourselves, well, look, the college football playoff scenario right now, as it stands, is a big question mark because we really don't know what's going to happen. Because you ask yourself, well, is Indiana going to make the playoff with their one loss to Ohio State? And you know what's cool about that is Ohio State. They're still not the conference champion or leading the conference, being the Big Ten. And the best part about it is they are at large as well. So it's kind of like Indiana couldn't really drop that far because, well, they were beat by a team that's in the same situation as them. So Oregon beat Ohio State. And that's why Oregon's in first. But then Ohio State beat Indiana. And so those two are in the same boat. The tiebreaker goes to those guys. But in the other one, the tiebreaker goes to Oregon over them. So it's sort of a conundrum because there's so many damn teams in the Big Ten right now. And the SEC is getting that way. And eventually you're going to see the same thing in, well, the SEC. You'll see it in the Big 12. I think there's going to be 4 super conferences. But you ask yourself, well, where are these teams going to be playing? And how does this whole thing match up? Yeah, there are home games involved here. The teams that get the bye, they get the home games and whatnot. And is it fair? Yeah, it's fair, but it's still slanted heavily towards what? Towards the Big Ten and the SEC, generally speaking. And so you have to ask yourself, what really is fair in the grand scheme of things? Because we really don't know what is fair. And when I'm saying that, what about the American Athletic Conference? What about some of the other schools from the Sun Belt or from the Mid-American Conference and whatnot? You ask about some of those and you say, well, wait a minute. Is it reasonable to assume, looking at the standings? So here, I've got the standings here. And you see Army in the AAC is 7-0. They're 9-1. They lost to Notre Dame. And their loss, well, let's face it, Army is still 9-1. So they lost to a team that's likely going to be in the playoff. But are they good enough to be in the playoff? In the same way that Ohio State and Indiana are still in the same situation, along with who? Along with Penn State, because they lost to Ohio State. So here, there's actually 4 schools that are in that same situation, or 3 of them, because Oregon beat those guys. Those guys beat Penn State. Those guys also beat Indiana. So how does this whole thing work? And you have to ask, who has what left, and how is that really going to affect everything? So the Army Black Knights seem to be on the outside looking in at 9-1. SMU is on the inside right now at 10-1. They're atop the ACC as newcomers to the ACC. By the way, the other newcomers to the ACC, not so good. The Cal Golden Bears are 2-5 in the conference and 6-5 overall, but they are bowl eligible, but it's probably toilet bowl. Stanford is 2-6 overall and 2-6 at the conference and 3-8 overall. Now the Big 12 has Iowa State right now clinging to the top position, along with Arizona State. They're both 6-2 in the conference. Also, Brigham Young is 6-2. Colorado is 6-2. 4 teams are 6-2 in the Big 12, and we'll find out who the representative is there. We already mentioned the Big 10, and so you have 3 teams 10-1 and one's 11-0. Conference USA, Jacksonville State is 7-0 but 8-3 overall. They're basically out of the picture. Independence, we already know about that one because those guys, be it Notre Dame, they're in at rank number 6, and who knows when the new playoff comes out. How about the Mid-American Conference? The Ohio Bobcats and the Bowling Green Falcons and the Miami Redhawks, that's Miami of Ohio, they're all 6-1, but none of them have a record to get them into contention or the discussion. Now, over the Mountain West, it's Boise State that's 7-0 in the conference and 10-1 overall. They've got a legitimate shot to make the college football playoff. And, let's face it, if those guys get themselves another win, if they win the Mountain West Conference, Boise State's going to find themselves in the conversation. And I think that in itself is an enormous victory. And, of course, it always deserves a round of applause. And coming up next for Boise State is Oregon State. Now, that'll be a very good game. Now, in fact, folks, if you don't know where that one lies, geographically speaking, with Boise State being up in the northern part of Idaho for the most part, we'll call it the western part of Idaho, and Oregon State plays in Corvallis, it's really just a jaunt over the high plains that gets you over to Corvallis. So that's a pretty close game, and that game is going to be played at Boise State. So we'll see how that one shapes up, but that ought to be a fun one to watch for sure. And Oregon State is no slouch despite their 5-6 record. Those guys know how to play football. So if Boise State ends up winning their game, I believe they're going to be in that college football playoff. They're going to have one of the lower seeds, but they're going to be in. Now, those other guys in second place, the local team here, they're 5-1 overall, but 9-2 in the conference, which means that those guys are going to have to somehow find a way to not only win their next game, right, because that's always going to be a big question mark, and then they have to do what? They have to win in the conference championship game. So the first question is, can they get by in-state rival Nevada, which likely they will. It's a home game, going to be played at Allegiant Stadium, so they'll go to 10-2. Boise State really has their hands full, but it's going to be those two playing likely for the Mountain West Conference Championship because Colorado State they're 5-1 in the conference, and Colorado State 7-4 overall. They're not going to make the Mountain West, or they're not going to make the college football playoff. I mean, their next game, their last game is against Utah State, which they should be able to win. But that's basically it for those guys. In the Pac-2, well, neither of those guys are getting in there, so that's not even a conversation. Over in the SEC, you have Texas in the West, and it looks like Georgia in the East with the tiebreaker over Tennessee. Now, right now, Texas A&M also is 5-2 in the West, but I'm not so sure. I'm not so sure what's going to happen there because Texas, if I'm not mistaken, they do play. I think it's usually Texas A&M. That's usually the last regular season game for those two, and it is. Yeah, it's Texas A&M. So an interesting thing could happen there is when you look at the Longhorns at 6-1 and the Aggies at 5-2. So technically, if they knock off Texas, they'll be a 6-2. Texas drops to 6-2. So then, by default, it would be Texas A&M winning the West at 6-2 with the tiebreaker, which could knock Texas right out of the the college football playoff. And so then it would be possibly Georgia, if they can get by Georgia Tech, and Texas A&M for the SEC championship. That's how all this stuff kind of shakes out. But what they're not considering are all the other schools, right? So you have a very good Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns team. Those guys are good. And also, they're sitting atop the Western Division of the Sun Belt, but they're never going to get a look, even at 9-2. Some of the other teams, they will get looks at 9-2, but they don't have the sex appeal that the SEC schools do. And the same thing goes for Marshall. The Thundering Herd are atop the East in the Sun Belt. But if Louisiana wins, if those two play in the Sun Belt championship game and Louisiana wins, that would push them to be the champion, of course, of the Sun Belt Conference. Now, mind you, the Sun Belt doesn't have the same appeal that the Mountain West does for some reason. And next week's game is Louisiana Ragin' Cajuns against Louisiana Monroe, against the Warhawks. And that's a game that the Ragin' Cajuns should certainly win. And they'll end up 9-2, and they should get a look at the college football playoff. This whole thing is a big disaster. They call it a dumpster fire. And there's also another way to say it, but I can't say that because we'll get fined by the FCC. Back here in a few minutes with the NFL in just a few minutes. Don't go anywhere.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.
If you served in the Marine Corps, by now you know about the contaminated water problem at Camp Lejeune. If you were stationed or worked at Camp Lejeune from 1953 to 1987, you probably have a lot of questions. We have some answers. You could be entitled to compensation. Billions of dollars are being allocated to pay for damages to anyone stationed at Camp Lejeune during that time. Unfortunately, it appears that officials may have known the contaminated water problem existed and did little to protect their men. The Semper Fi code was not honored. If you or someone in your family has developed a serious illness, including various forms of cancer, call this Camp Lejeune legal support line right now. You can't turn back the clock and change what happened, but you can certainly call right now and learn your rights as a Marine. Here's the number.
Call 800-335-7196. 800-335-7196. That's 800-335-7196.
Do a search on how to get out of credit card debt, and you'll find everything from crazy promises to ways you can try to do it yourself. Many of those ideas just don't work, and they leave you broker than you were. Here's some advice. Call our debt helpline. In a quick and free 5-minute conversation, our experts will listen to you and learn about how much credit card debt you have, what your goals are, and then show you the right solution to help you get out of credit card debt with one new simple, affordable payment. The credit card companies make available special programs to help if you're struggling. All it takes for you to finally get out of credit card debt is one quick, free phone call. So please call right now.
800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. 800-948-6817. That's 800-948-6817. Paid for by the Debt Helpline.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Folks, make sure you check out the sportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest, or recorded shows, again, which are our podcast. Also, make sure you check out the partners page. Lots of great partners over there. And in fact, one of them, we always have to acknowledge our friends over in greater Chicagoland, and that would be Al's number one Italian beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. That is Al's number one Italian beef. And folks, if you've never had an Italian beef, the best thing I can do is say you have to try it. It's kind of similar to a French dip, but it's not. It's made very differently, but yet it kind of looks the same, but it doesn't, if you know what I mean. In any event, it is probably the king of all sandwiches. And if you've never had it, I got to tell you, you will be hooked. It is what it is. Folks, you can pick up your Italian beef sandwich at Al's number one Italian beef at 1079 West Taylor Street in Chicago's Little Italy. Or if you're not there, go ahead and give them a call. Or you can check them out online at alsbeef.com. That's alsbeef.com. You can also find them at Goldbelly. Just type in Al's Beef. Yes! Boy, that's a good sandwich. Sorry, a shameless plug for one of our favorites. We don't get paid for saying that. We just like it. Those are our good friends. All right, welcome back to everybody on TV and radio. And thanks for Brian Urlacher bringing us back as well. So real quick, I want to talk about this before we head over to the NFL, and that was the projected bowl game matchups for college football. And we're going to run through these as fast as we can. We're going to go ahead and give a little bit of credit to 247 Sports for putting this handy-dandy list together. That would be Hawaii Bowl. Start out with the Hawaii Bowl. The projected matchup would be Memphis and Colorado State. And, of course, Colorado State is unbeaten in the Mountain West Conference right now. So there's a chance the Rams could take Boise State out of the playoff conversation in a couple of weeks. We'll see what happens there. The Myrtle Beach Bowl. Projected matchup is Louisiana and the Rockets of Toledo. The Potato Bowl. The Idaho Potato Bowl. Projected matchup, Miami of Ohio and Georgia Southern on the blue field. The Camellia Bowl. Projected matchup, Eastern Michigan and South Alabama. The Boca Raton Bowl. Projected matchup is Liberty and Navy. Boy, that'll be a fun one. The Detroit Bowl. Didn't know there was such a thing. I know they called it something else, but apparently they lost their sponsor. The Detroit Bowl is projected as somehow Michigan State. I guess just doing anything to draw some people there, because last time they had a crowd of, I don't know, I think it was maybe 3 or 4, if you know what I mean. Anyway, it's Michigan State and Buffalo, and of course, Michigan State struggled mightily against Purdue, and Purdue is really bad this year. And of course, somehow they got the nod, because yes, that is their 6th win, and this is one of the bottom of the barrel bowl games, apparently. And so that makes them bowl eligible. And of course, the other side of it has a pretty good Buffalo squad. We're going to be rooting for the Bulls in that one, the Buffalo Bulls. The Rate Bowl. Didn't know there was such a thing. I thought it was the Guaranteed Rate Bowl. Maybe it's just the Rate Bowl now. Projected matchup is Kansas and Rutgers. Look out for Kansas. Man, those guys are on a tear right now. The 68 Ventures Bowl. Not sure where that one is or what it is, but the projected matchup is Arkansas State and Western Michigan. Boy, it looks like it's going to be a very long day for Western Michigan. The Los Angeles Bowl would be... Yeah, UNLV and California. So that is certainly not a game where they're taking academics into consideration, because if that were the case, Cal would win 300-0. The Frisco Bowl. That would be Frisco, Texas, not San Francisco, by the way. That's over the greater Dallas market. That would feature, the projected matchup is Bowling Green and Coastal Carolina, the Chanticleers of Coastal Carolina. One of the more fun names, the Gasparilla Bowl. would feature right now. Somehow Florida is bowl eligible. Not really sure how that happened, but they have a couple of really good wins. Florida and Virginia Tech. ACC, SEC. The Cure Bowl, not as in the music of the Cure, but apparently it's something to cure people in general. The projected matchup is Vanderbilt and UConn? What? The New Orleans Bowl projected matchup, the Thundering Herd of Marshall against Jacksonville State. The Birmingham Bowl, South Florida and Oklahoma. And of course, got to say this, Brett Venables posted his biggest win against Alabama. And that was a blowout, by the way, folks. And so I guess that's what made them eligible to really get to some kind of a reasonable bowl game. Of course, there are now 13 bowl-eligible teams in the SEC, which means bowl organizers and the league will decide on where one of these multiple six-win teams will actually play outside the league's usual tie-ins. The Armed Forces Bowl, Texas Tech and Texas State. They may score 200 points in that game. The Liberty Bowl, one of the old ones. We like that. TCU and Arkansas. Boy, that'll be a fun one. Like to go to that one. The Las Vegas Bowl, Ole Miss and Washington. Did anyone see the Rebels' loss to Florida coming? Not me. And that knocks them all the way down to the Las Vegas Bowl. But Ole Miss, one of those teams that'll score 50 a game. And Washington, well, let's face it, they played there before. They'll probably play there again. The Pinstripe Bowl at Yankee Stadium, Pittsburgh and Minnesota, who got robbed in that game against Penn State. The Fenway Bowl at Fenway Park, Louisville and Tulane, the Green Wave. The Holiday Bowl, which every year seems to be one of the best ones, would feature Syracuse and Colorado. The New Mexico Bowl would have projected, that is, New Mexico and UTSA. That one looks like UTSA all day and twice on Sunday. The Arizona Bowl, the Bobcats of Ohio and San Jose State. Watch out for those Bobcats. My favorite one, the Pop-Tart Bowl. Yes! Iowa State and Clemson. I'd like to go to it and have a Pop-Tart, if you know what I mean. Now, Clemson's playoff hopes are not over, though. So if the Tigers beat South Carolina and Syracuse upsets Miami, though. But for now, Clemson's projected to be out of the picture. That would likely land Dabo Swinney and his crew in Orlando against one of the Big 12's top finishers. I would love to have a T-shirt from the Pop-Tart Bowl. The Alamo Bowl, Brigham Young and Washington State. That would scream Brigham Young. The Military Bowl, East Carolina, the Pirates against the Eagles of Boston College. And mind you, these are all projections now. The Music City Bowl, projected matchup was LSU and Nebraska? What? Yeah, who knew? Nebraska is finally bowl eligible. And so can you imagine just getting your sixth win, but then you got to face LSU? Boy, that could be a very long day for Nebraska. Independence Bowl, another one of the old ones, West Virginia and the Cadets of Army. And we will see a steady diet of run in that game. The Reliquist Bowl, not sure where that one is, South Carolina and Iowa. The Texas Bowl, Texas A&M and Baylor. Well, go figure, a couple of Texas teams. The Tony the Tiger Bowl, yes! Another good one. North Carolina, the Chapel Hill Billies against the Trojans of SC. Boy, how the mighty have fallen. The First Responder Bowl, not sure where that one is. Western Kentucky, the Hilltoppers against James Madison. That would be the Dukes. Watch out for the Dukes in that one. The Citrus Bowl, Alabama and Illinois. Could be a very long day for Illinois. The Gator Bowl would feature Missouri, very good defensive team, against Duke, a very good defensive team. I think I might actually go to that one. As a Duke alum, of course, nice round of applause for Duke. The Mayo Bowl, everybody gets, I guess where the winner gets pounded with big thing of mayonnaise. That's like the Gatorade jug full of mayonnaise. Projected matchup, Georgia Tech and Michigan. Long day for Michigan coming up there. Bahamas Bowl, Northern Illinois, who beat Notre Dame, and Sam Houston. Then, of course, you've got the college playoffs. Right now, they stand Arizona State and Oregon. And then Miami and Texas, Tennessee at Notre Dame. Indiana at Penn State. How do you like that? Fiesta Bowl matchups would be Oregon and Boise State. Peach Bowl, Texas and SMU. The Sugar Bowl, Tennessee and Georgia, a rematch. And, of course, the Rose Bowl would feature, are you ready for this one? Two Big Ten teams of Indiana and Ohio State. What? Come on. That's awful. Anyway, That's the way this stuff matches up. The Orange Bowl would have Texas and Georgia, Cotton Bowl, Oregon, and Ohio State. That's, of course, if everything went as planned. Now, real quick, over to the NFL. You know, the NFL had some wild games, and you shook your head. If you watched the Bears game, I shook my head. I watched the Bears and the Vikings, and the Bears were down by a bundle. Somehow they came back, and they tied the game. I mean, literally, they were down by 11. They got the touchdown, the 2-point conversion, and then they kicked the 3-point, the regular field goal, that is, to tie the game, send it into overtime just to give the ball away to Minnesota. They end up winning 30-27. And another wild one, we saw Dallas that was down a bundle to Washington. They come back, and those two teams scored, I think, 41 points in the fourth quarter. And Dallas ends up winning 34-26 in a wild one. Miami rolls 34-15. Miami, since they got Tua back, they're 3-0 as they should be. And as we look further, of course, you go back to the Cleveland win in the blizzard at home against Pittsburgh. That was a nice win for Cleveland. Detroit just keeps on marching. They're the first team to 10 wins in the National Football League with a nice win at Indianapolis, 24-6 in a low-scoring affair. Tampa goes in to Big Blue, and they just make an example out of it. That's their whipping boy. Tampa 30, the Giants 7. Kansas City with a late comeback and a game-winning drive by Mahomes, 30-27 over the Carolina Panthers, who are much improved. Denver just keeps on marching, 29-19 at Vegas with a win over the Raiders. The Seahawks in a defensive struggle, 16-6 against the Cardinals. I would have never thought that one. The Eagles make an example out of the South Central Sheep, but you can call them the LA Rams, 37-20. Green Bay beat San Francisco without Brock Purdy, 38-10. And it was Tennessee upsetting Houston at Houston, 32-27. You know, you look at these standings, you say, well, which one was the most impactful? Look, the Chiefs have a 3-game lead. Well, we'll say a 2.5-game lead over the Chargers. Chargers, of course, with their game with Baltimore. Houston still up 2 games in their division. Pittsburgh is only up 1 game, which that could change very, very quickly. And it's Buffalo with a 4-game lead over Miami. Imagine if Miami had 2 of the entire season. Over the NFC, it's Philadelphia with a 2-game lead, 2.5-game lead over Washington. Detroit with a slim 1-game lead against Minnesota. Atlanta with a 1-game lead over Tampa. And Seattle, by virtue of a tiebreaker, have the lead in the NFC West over Arizona. And it's weird to see Seattle, Arizona, the Rams, and San Francisco in last place, mind you. The Rams and the Niners both at 5-6. That's a real head-scratcher. And the other two, of course, are at 6-5. But that division is anyone's division for sure. And the same thing with the NFC South, because Tampa is only really a game behind Atlanta. So that's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal, and we'll see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Can your IRA stand up to the next financial crisis that our top economists are saying is at our doorsteps? By allocating a percentage of your IRA into physical gold and silver with a tax-free rollover, you can diversify and safeguard your holdings from turbulent markets and economic downturns by putting your IRA back on the gold standard. Find out how to safeguard your assets with a tax-free rollover with a Genesis Gold IRA, the only IRA that can hold physical precious metals. Call now for your free gold and silver report. Protect your IRA today with one simple phone call and learn how to qualify for up to $10,000 in free silver. Call Genesis Gold Group, empowering faith-driven stewardship. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. 800-932-5517. That's 800-932-5517.